I just want to know one thing, man. What happened to that bad guy? Originally, I was gonna do a Wonder Woman spoiler review, but I did shoot it. I looked at it and I said, you know what? I'm pretty much saying the same thing that I did in my spoiler-free review. So I figure instead of going on an 8-minute rant about why I love the movie so much, because those that saw my spoiler-free review know how much I love Wonder Woman, I said instead I want to do a video focusing on what Wonder Woman was lacking, and that was the villains. Now, Wonder Woman had three villains in the movie. Now, this is going into spoiler territory. She did have three villains in the movie. Two of them were laughably bad. I know I did mention that I wanted to see more of them, but when I thought about it, I said no because it would have made the movie kind of ridiculous because they were a little cartoon-like. They're like there was even a point where there was like even like giggling among themselves, like they just came up with some diabolical plan, and it's like, yes, we're gonna get them, and I'm like, nah, dude, that just kind of messed up the whole tone of the film. And then the main bad guy, Ares, you don't see him until the end. Like he's talked about, he's mentioned, but you really don't see him to the end of the movie. So then when they did fight, even though it was a cool fight, it didn't really have the impact it was supposed to because you really didn't see him throughout the movie. You saw these two cartoon characters instead. So that really had me thinking. I said, you know what? As great as Wonder Woman is, and it is the best movie of the DCEU so far, but it's like it falls into the same trap as all these other superhero movies lately is the villains. Where the fuck are the villains? Like, I mean, a lot of them, like, they're there, but they're not there. Okay, for example, Age of Ultron. Ultron was supposed to be like the ultimate bad guy, and he was a dark comedy version of Tony Stark, and he wasn't menacing at all. Like, he was more menacing in the trailer, in the teaser trailer, than he was in the movie, and it just wasn't happening. And besides Loki in the Avengers, Bane in the Dark Knight Rises, and Joker in the Dark Knight, Marvel and DC just has not put out good villains. And it's not like they don't have the characters, like they have a whole list of characters, a whole catalog of characters that they can do. But even when they do use them, sometimes they don't use them right. For example, Doomsday. Yes, that happened. Looked like a gray Ninja Turtle without the shell. Like it was just bad. So all right, I go back to the 80s. See, I grew up in the 80s, and we were blessed with some great villains in the movies. One of them, my boy, Clubber Lang, Rocky 3. Not an Oscar performance, but at the same time, he had an image, he had attitude, he was charismatic, he was great in the movie, and you hated him. You couldn't wait for Rocky to kick his ass. And even in Rocky 4 with Ivan Drago, with him killing Apollo Creed, you couldn't wait for Rocky to defeat him. And that's what made the movie special because the villains were so bad that you rooted for the heroes to beat them. So I mean, filmmaking 101, you have an antagonist and protagonist, and they're constantly battling each other. Then they have a final standoff in the end with the protagonist most of the time getting the best of them, and that's what makes a solid film, especially an action film, a superhero film. You got heroes and you have villains. The heroes are supposed to battle the villains. What if the Super Friends, if you had the Challenge of the Super Friends cartoon, old school heads that remember that show, when you had the Challenge of the Super Friends cartoon, what would that cartoon be without the Legion of Doom? If it was just the Super Friends, you know, rescuing cats out the tree or stopping trains and shit like that, like a lot of the stuff that Superman did in the very first Christopher Reeve movie. No diss to it, but let's be honest, the movie wasn't all that because Superman really had nobody to fight. Like, what would the Challenge of the Super Friends be without the Legion of Doom? You see what I mean? So it's like you need to have villains to make your heroes really shine. And one thing that DC and Marvel has done very well is really establish their heroes. Okay, they really, except for the Zack Snyder Superman, I'm not too much of a fan of his. But the heroes are really established. They're really set up well. Now let's give them some people to fight so we can really see what they're made of and really have a chance to root for them. Okay, now taking it back to Superman. Okay, in the first Superman, good movie. No, don't get me wrong, but not as good as 2. Why? Because 2 had General Zod and his 2 minions to fight against him. So it's like now Superman has somebody physically he can go against, and it's like it's more of a threat because there's 3 of them. Okay, So that's what I'm trying to say. And man, you go back to the 80s. I mean, God, we had some classic villains. Um, let's see, Darth Vader, the biggest, baddest motherfucker there was, man. Also Doom, Conan the Barbarian, another menacing villain. Bennett from Commando, also known as Freddie Mercury from Queen. Okay, Johnny and John Kreese from The Karate Kid. Like I said before, Clubber Lang, Ivan Drago, Joker in the first Batman. Even forgot to mention Freddy Krueger, another classic horror icon, bad guy from the 80s. Freddy Krueger, like he was a star of those movies. Okay, except for the first one, because the first one was all about Nancy and her defeating Freddy. But then after that, it became the Freddy show. That's how badass of a villain he was. So we need to go back to that where we have some iconic characters that give the good guys a run for their money, bring out the best in the protagonist, and therefore it makes a much better film. So bring back the bad guy, man. We need to have more bad guys, okay? So that's my little mini rant. I just want to see some better villains in these movies. We haven't been getting that. So but I loved Wonder Woman, but it could have been much better had Ares been more a part of the movie, more than just being talked about and mentioned, but actually seeing the stuff that he's done. Okay. So what do you guys think? Are you pleased with the Marvel villains? Are you pleased with the DC villains? Do you think they could be done better, or do you think they're being done well enough? Comment freely below. Don't forget to subscribe. This is Rashad G signing out. See you in the next video.